The hum of the Odyssey's graph plates was a constant lullaby, a metallic heartbeat in the void billions of kilometers from Sol. For 5 standard years, Captain Eva Rostova had lived by its rhythm. Her command chair, molded synth leather cool against her back, faced the main viewscreen, currently displaying the swirling turquoise and emerald majesty of Kepler 186f, affectionately nicknamed Xylos by the survey team. It was the 5th potentially habitable exoplanet charted by the Odyssey on its deep space reconnaissance mission, but this one felt different.
Anything new from the long-range scans, Commander Yin?
Eva asked, her voice calm, betraying none of the unease prickling her thoughts. Commander Jian Li, her second-in-command and chief science officer, adjusted his glasses, his reflection ghosting over the nebulae painted on the screen. Atmosphere remains stable, Captain. High oxygen content, nitrogen dominant, trace noble gases. Liquid water confirmed, extensive surface oceans and river systems. Biosignatures are off the charts, stronger than anything we've encountered. But, Eva prompted. Jian hesitated, a rare sign of uncertainty in the meticulous officer. The energy readings, Captain. They're erratic. We detected patterned neutrino emissions yesterday, faint but distinct. They vanished after 3 cycles. And the planet's magnetic field is fluctuating in ways that don't correlate with stellar activity or core dynamics models. It's almost deliberate. Eva leaned forward.
Deliberate.
The word hung in the recycled air of the bridge.
Life is deliberate, Yin.
Could it be technological? No discernible radio waves, no orbital infrastructure, no thermal signatures consistent with large-scale industry, Jian replied, tapping commands onto his console. A complex waveform overlaid the image of Xylos. These fluctuations are deep spectrum, almost geological in scale, yet they possess a rhythmic complexity that suggests something else. Not technology as we understand it, perhaps not even life as we strictly define it.
A planetweit Organism?
A geological consciousness. The speculation came from Dr. Eris Thorne, the mission's xenobotanist, leaning over Jian's console, his eyes alight with the fire of discovery.
Ares livet for the unknown, the bizarre tapestry of extraterrestrial life. Imagine the implications.
Eva tempered his enthusiasm. Let's stick to the data for now, Doctor.
Prep the Stardust Lander.
Standard survey team, yourself, Dr. Thorne, Security Chief Jax, and exogeologist Lena Petrova. Jian, you have the bridge. Maintain high orbital surveillance. Report any change in those energy readings immediately. Understood, Captain, Jian acknowledged.
Ares beamed. Xylos awaits.
Jax, the stoic security chief, entered the bridge, his powered environment suit giving him a bulky silhouette. Lander prepped and checked, Captain.
Wypungssystems charged, atmospheric processor screen.
Ready for descent. Eva nodded.
Standard protocols, Jax.
Assess, don't engage unless necessary. Your primary objective is the safety of the science team. Understood, Captain.
Wie go careful.
Jax's voice was a low gravel, reassuring in its steadiness. Eva watched the stardust detach from the Odyssey's ventral docking bay, a silver dart against the swirling canvas of Xylos. Her unease hadn't subsided. Patterned neutrino emissions.
Fluctuating magnetic fields.
It felt less like a routine survey and more like knocking on a door they weren't sure should be opened.
Chapter 2, Emerald Hell.
The descent was turbulent. The stardust bucked and shuddered as it punched through Xylos's upper atmosphere, atmospheric friction painting plasma streaks across the reinforced viewports. Below, the turquoise oceans gave way to vast continents draped in emerald green so intense it almost hurt the eyes. It wasn't the familiar green of Earth's chlorophyll, it pulsed with an inner luminescence. Atmospheric density higher than predicted, Jax reported from the co-pilot seat, his hands steady on the controls. Compensating. Look at that. Eris breathed, pointing a gloved finger towards the viewport. The foliage. It's interconnected, like a global network of bioluminescent veins. Through the swirling clouds, they could see vast, plateau-like structures covered in the glowing flora. Towering, mushroom-shaped trees pulsed with soft light, connected by thick, vine-like tendrils that snaked across the landscape for kilometers. Strange, six-winged creatures with iridescent bodies flitted between the giant growths. The designated landing zone was a relatively flat expanse near a large river delta, chosen for its geological interest and proximity to diverse biomes. Jax brought the Stardust down with practiced ease, the landing struts absorbing the impact with a hiss of hydraulics. Silence, thick and heavy, followed the engine shutdown. Then, the sounds of Xylos seeped in: clicks, whistles, deep guttural croaks, and a persistent low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate through the lander's hull. Air pressure stable, negligible toxins, Lena Petrova announced, checking her console. Temperature is a balmy 28 Celsius.
Let's breate alien air.
Jax cycled the main hatch. Humid, earthy air, thick with the scent of unknown blossoms and damp soil, flooded the cabin. It smelled alive, overwhelmingly so. They stepped out onto alien soil. It wasn't soil exactly, but a dense, spongy mat of interwoven roots and fungal hyphae, springy under their boots. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth standard, noticeable but not debilitating. The scale of the place was breathtaking. The mushroom-like trees soared hundreds of meters into the alien sky, their caps filtering the light of the K-type star Kepler-186 into shifting patterns on the jungle floor. Giant, fern-like plants unfurled fronds the size of solar sails. The air buzzed with unseen insects and the calls of hidden creatures. Magnificent, Eris whispered, already deploying his sample collectors and scanners. The biodiversity. It's exponential compared to initial scans. Lena knelt, activating a sonic penetrator to analyze the substrate. Fascinating.
The root network goes deep. Dense biomass.
Getting strange resonance patterns from below. Almost like the ground itself is humming. Jax maintained a vigilant perimeter, his pulse rifle held at low ready. His helmet sensors scanned the surroundings, tagging potential threats. Movement, Sector 3. Large lifeform, quadrupedal, approximately 300 kilograms. They all turned. Emerging from the dense undergrowth was a creature resembling a six-legged panther, its fur shimmering with shifting colors that perfectly matched the dappled light. Its eyes, large and obsidian, tracked them with unnerving intelligence. It opened its mouth, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth, and emitted a low growl that vibrated in their chests.
Hold Position, Jax commanded softly. Non-aggressive Stanks.
Eris, no sudden movements with those shiny tools. The creature watched them for a long moment, its tail twitching. Then, as if deeming them uninteresting or irrelevant, it turned and melted back into the jungle shadows. Well, Eris said, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was introductory. Let's establish the sensor perimeter and the atmospheric analysis unit, Lena suggested, refocusing on her tasks.
The sooner we get hard data, the better.
For several hours, they worked, collecting samples, deploying sensors, mapping the immediate area. The alien forest was a sensory overload. Plants reacted to their touch, retracting leaves or emitting puffs of luminous spores. Small, multi-limbed creatures scurried underfoot. The air hummed constantly. Communication with the Odyssey was patchy, plagued by static bursts that correlated with the planet's magnetic fluctuations.
Odyssey, this is Stardust. Do you read?
Jax tried again. Static crackled back, then Eva's voice, faint but clear for a moment.
Stardust read you, Signal unstable, report.
All nominal so far, Captain, Jax replied quickly. Environment is complex but manageable. Proceeding with survey protocols. Will maintain scheduled check-ins. Copy that, Stardust. Maintain. Caution, those energy readings. The signal dissolved into static again. Jax frowned. Comms are getting worse. That magnetic field isn't playing nice.
As dusk began to fall, casting long, alien shadows, the bioluminescence of the forest floor intensified.
The network Eris had pointed out glowed brighter, pulsing in slow, rhythmic waves that flowed across the landscape like living currents. The mushroom trees overhead lit up, bathing the jungle in an ethereal, shifting light show of blues, greens, and violets.
It's beautiful, Lena murmured, wetting the display.
It's also when nocturnal predators usually emerge, Jax reminded them dryly.
Let's secure the camp.
They retreated to the relative safety of the stardust, activating the exterior lights and sonic deterrents. As Eris catalogued his samples and Lena analyzed geological data, Jax monitored the external sensors. The forest outside was alive with movement and sound, far more active than during the day. Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoed through the jungle, followed by a cacophony of alien roars and crashing sounds. Red icons flared on Jax's console. Multiple large lifeforms approaching, he announced, his voice tight.
Fast.
Very fast.
Chapter 3. The Whispering Ruins.
Through the landers' viewports, they saw them. Sleek, fast-moving predators, smaller than the panther-like creature but operating in a coordinated pack. They resembled reptilian wolves, covered in dark, segmented armor plating, their eyes glowing with a fierce red light. They ignored the sonic deterrents completely, circling the stardust with fluid, menacing grace. They aren't attacking, Eris noted, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. They're observing.
Testing the perimeter.
Or waiting, Jax countered, activating the lander's external defense turrets. Lena, Eris, strap in. This could get rough. One of the creatures darted forward, slamming its armored head against a landing strut with incredible force. The lander shuddered. Another leaped, claws scrabbling against the hull, searching for purchase. Targeting, Jax muttered, his fingers flying over the weapon's console. A turret swiveled, locking onto the creature on the hull. A burst of concentrated plasma erupted, hitting the creature square in the chest. It shrieked, falling back, its armor cracked and smoking. It thrashed for a moment, then lay still. The attack seemed to galvanize the others. They surged forward, a wave of claws and teeth, slamming against the hull, trying to find a weak point. Plasma bolts flashed in the alien night, driving them back, leaving scorched earth and the acrid smell of burnt alien flesh.
Jax, Status.
Lena yelled over the din. Holding them off, but they're persistent, Jax grunted, firing another burst.
Hull integrity at 98%.
They can't get in, but they could damage external systems if this keeps up. Suddenly, as quickly as it began, the attack stopped. The creatures hesitated, looking around as if receiving a silent command. A low, resonant hum filled the air, deeper and more powerful than the background thrum they'd grown accustomed to. The bioluminescent network on the ground pulsed erratically, flashing brilliant white. The reptilian wolves whined, a strange high-pitched sound, then turned and vanished back into the jungle as swiftly as they had appeared. Silence descended again, broken only by the crackling of residual plasma burns and the lander's humming systems.
What in the void was that?
Eris asked, unstrapping himself. The hum. Lena said thoughtfully. It coincided exactly with their retreat.
And the light pulse.
It was like a command signal.
Jax scanned the perimeter. Area clear.
No immediate threats detected. But I don't like this. It felt coordinated. Too coordinated.
Odyssey, this is Stardust, come in.
Jax tried the comms again. Only static answered. Comms are completely down now. Whatever that pulse was, it's playing hell with our systems and the ionosphere. So we're cut off, Eva said, her voice grim. They were stranded, surrounded by hostile life, on a planet that seemed actively aware of their presence. Not entirely, Lena said, pointing to her geological scanner readout. Remember those resonance patterns I detected? During that pulse, they spiked massively, and I triangulated a source. Approximately 15 kilometers east of here. Very strong, complex energy signature emanating from beneath the surface.
Ares eyes lit up. A nexus point? A control hoop.
Or, Lena continued, zooming in on the topographical map, ruins. The scanner overlay showed distinct geometric patterns beneath the jungle floor. Straight lines, right angles, concentric circles. Unmistakably artificial. There's evidence of subsurface structures.
Old ones, judging by the degradation signatures and the biomass overlay.
Ancient ruins?
Ares breathed.
A previous civilization? Could be the source of the patterned neutrinos Jen detected, Lena theorized. Maybe whatever is generating the energy signals is located there. Jax considered the tactical situation. Stay put in a damaged lander with failing comms, waiting for potentially hostile forces to return? Or move towards a potential source of answers, maybe even shelter or technology? 15 clicks through that jungle isn't a walk in the park, Jax said. Especially with unknown hostiles and a planet that seems to be actively interfering. But staying here is passive, Eris argued. Those creatures retreated on command. What happens when the next command is destroy? If there are ruins, there might be shelter, information. Maybe even a way to boost our signal. Lena nodded in agreement. The energy signature is our best lead. Understanding it might be key to understanding this planet and getting off it. Jax looked at the map, then at the impenetrable jungle outside. He weighed the risks.
All right. We can stay here. Vi pack light, tech essential gear extra power cells, portable atmospheric analyzer.
We move out at first light.
Destination, the ruins. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Ancients.
The trek was arduous. The alien jungle resisted them at every turn. Thick, rubbery vines snagged their boots, phosphorescent fungi released disorienting spores when disturbed, and the spongy ground made every step an effort. Strange insects buzzed relentlessly, their bites leaving irritating welts despite the environment suit's repellents. The air remained thick, humid, and filled with the incessant hum of the planet. Jax took point, his pulse rifle sweeping the dense foliage. Lena navigated using her modified geological scanner, guiding them towards the energy signature. Eris, despite the danger, couldn't resist stopping occasionally to scan a bizarre plant or pocket a sample of iridescent moss, earning sharp reprimands from Jax. They encountered more of Xylos's fauna. Herds of lumbering, six-legged herbivores with crystalline plates on their backs ignored them.
Small, arboreal creatures chattered warnings from the canopy.
Once, they glimpsed the shimmering, color-shifting panther creature again, watching them from a distance before vanishing. It felt less like a predator stalking them and more like an observer. The ecosystem seems managed, Eris commented during a brief rest stop, examining a flower that tracked their movements. Predator-prey relationships exist, but there's an underlying order. Those reptilian wolves last night, they weren't hunting for food. It was a probe, a test. Managed by what? Jax asked, scanning the trees.
The planet itself.
Lena suggested, checking her scanner. The energy signature from the ruins is getting stronger. And it's pulsing in rhythm with the background hum and the bioluminescent network. As they drew closer to the coordinates, the character of the jungle began to change. The giant mushroom trees became less frequent, replaced by colossal, crystalline structures that thrust towards the sky like shattered shards of glass. The spongy ground gave way to cracked, tessellated paving stones, mostly overgrown but unmistakably artificial. They had found the ruins. It wasn't a city in the human sense, but a vast complex of interconnected geometric structures, half buried by time and the encroaching jungle. Walls of unknown, obsidian-like material rose at impossible angles, etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and writhe in the peripheral vision. Archways large enough to admit starships led into shadowed depths.
Strange, resonant frequencies emanated from the very stones.
Incredible, Eris whispered, running a gloved hand over an etched wall.
Non-humanoid design.
Completely alien architecture. The energy source is directly beneath us, Lena confirmed, pointing her scanner at a large, circular depression in the center of the complex, overgrown with glowing moss.
Deep underground.
Jax scanned the area. No immediate threats. But this place feels watchful. Let's find a defensible entrance to whatever is below. They located a massive stone ramp leading downwards, disappearing into darkness. The air flowing out was cool and carried a faint, metallic tang, along with the ever-present low hum, now much more intense. This is it, Lena said.
The energy readings spike down terror.
Lights on. Weapons ready, Jax ordered.
Stay close.
No wandering off, Eris. They descended into the depths. Their suit lights cut through the absolute blackness, revealing a colossal subterranean chamber. The walls were covered in the same shifting geometric patterns, glowing faintly now with their own internal light. In the center of the chamber, floating above a dark abyss, was a crystalline structure, a multifaceted diamond the size of their lander, pulsing with soft, rhythmic light that synchronized with the planet-wide hum.
By the stars. Ares breathed.
Lines of energy, visible as shimmering conduits, flowed from the giant crystal, connecting to conduits embedded in the walls and floor, stretching off into unseen tunnels. "This is the hub," Lena stated, her scanner working furiously. "It's regulating the planet's magnetic field, the bioluminescence, possibly even aspects of the ecosystem. It's ancient, impossibly advanced." As they cautiously approached the central crystal, the ambient hum intensified, resonating not just in the air, but within their very bones. Images, fleeting and alien, flickered at the edge of their consciousness. Vast cosmic landscapes, swirling nebulae, geometric shapes folding in upon themselves, beings of pure energy.
"Do you all feel that?"
Eris asked, his hand trembling slightly. "Mental interference," Jax growled, gripping his rifle tighter. "Stay focused."
Suddenly, the light from the crystal flared.
A wave of energy washed over them, not physical but psychic. It wasn't hostile, but inquisitive, overwhelming. Memories flooded Lena's mind, geological epochs passing in seconds, continents forming and reforming. Eris saw the evolution of Xylos's unique biochemistry, the rise and fall of bizarre lifeforms. Jax experienced flashes of defensive protocols, planetary immune responses repelling cosmic threats. Then, a clearer impression emerged in all their minds, a sense of immense age, of loneliness, of a vast consciousness woven into the fabric of the planet itself, the legacy of the beings who built this place. They weren't just ruins, they were a functioning part of a planetary network. The psychic wave subsided, leaving them gasping, disoriented.
"What was that?"
Lena stammered, leaning against a pillar.
"Kommunikation."
Eris suggested, awestruck. "Or just passive presence." Before they could analyze further, a new sound echoed from the depths of the abyss below the crystal. A heavy scraping, rhythmic and purposeful. Something was coming. Jax raised his rifle, aiming his light into the darkness below.
Contact. Unknown entity approaching. Chapter 5. The planetary mind. From the abyss, it rose.
Not a creature of flesh and blood, but a construct of the same obsidian material as the ruins, animated by the energy flowing through the chamber. It was vaguely humanoid but elongated, multi-jointed, its head a smooth, featureless ovoid that glowed with the same internal light as the central crystal. It moved with an unsettling grace, its feet scraping silently on the unseen floor below before it levitated smoothly up to their level. It was a guardian, ancient and implacable. "Do not engage unless fired upon," Jax ordered, his voice tight. He kept his rifle trained on the construct. The guardian stopped a dozen meters away, hovering silently. It radiated no heat, made no sound beyond the faint hum that seemed part of the chamber itself. It simply watched them, its featureless face betraying no hint of intention. "It's scanning us," Lena whispered, looking at her device. "Deep-level biosignatures, energy profiles, even neural activity." "Can we communicate with it?" Eris asked, taking a hesitant step forward. "Hello? We are explorers.
We mean no harm."
The guardian remained motionless, unresponsive.
The giant crystal behind it pulsets lichtly faster.
The psychic pressure in the chamber increased subtly. "I don't think it does verbal communication, Eris," Jax said. "It's a drone, a defense mechanism." "Or a messenger," Eris countered. He focused his thoughts, trying to project feelings of peace, curiosity, the image of the Odyssey in orbit, their desire to leave.
For a moment, nothing happened.
Then, the guardian slowly raised one multi-jointed arm. Its hand, composed of interlocking geometric plates, opened. An image formed in the air above its palm. A holographic projection, shimmering and complex. It showed Xylos, surrounded by its fluctuating magnetic field. Then, it zoomed in, showing the Stardust landing, the team exploring, the encounter with the reptilian wolves, their trek to the ruins.
"It knows," Lena murmured.
"It's been watching everything." The projection shifted. It showed abstract concepts, difficult to decipher, patterns of energy flowing across the planet, the deep connection between the crystal hub, the bioluminescent network, the flora, the fauna, even the tectonic plates. It depicted the planet as a single, vast, interconnected organism, with this chamber as its cognitive core, its mind. Then, the image changed again. It showed a threat from space, jagged, aggressive ships, unlike anything human. They bombarded Xylos, attempting to breach the planetary consciousness. The Guardian construct, and others like it, rose to defend the planet, aided by manipulated magnetic fields and coordinated swarms of native life forms. The invaders were repelled, shattered, but the conflict left deep scars on the planet mind. It's explaining, Eris realized. Its history, its nature. It sees us as a potential threat, another invasion. The projection showed the stardust again, then focused on their weapons, their technology.
A feeling emanated from the Guardian, amplified by the crystal, caution, distrust, a demand.
It wants us to leave, Jax interpreted. And it's showing us what happens to threats. But we're trapped here, Lena pointed out. Comms are down, the lander is damaged. We can't leave without help or repairing the stardust. Eris stepped forward again, projecting his thoughts more strongly. Help us. Repair. Leave. He focused on the image of the damaged lander, the silent Odyssey in orbit. The Guardian tilted its head like ovoid. The projection flickered. It showed the stardust, then superimposed complex energy patterns over it, indicating the interference. Then, it showed a path leading from the ruins, back towards the lander's location, but marked with specific energy signatures. Is it offering a safe route? Lena wondered, trying to decipher the map. Avoiding the areas of highest magnetic flux? And maybe calling off the welcoming committee? Jax added dryly. The Guardian lowered its arm, the projection vanishing. It remained hovering, waiting. The choice was theirs. Trust the planetary consciousness that had already demonstrated lethal defensive capabilities? Or try to fight their way out or find another solution? I think we should trust it, Eris said firmly. It's shown us more than hostility. It showed us understanding history. It's defending itself, but it might also be capable of cooperation, on its own terms. Lena nodded slowly. The safe path correlates with low interference zones on my scanner logs. It makes sense. Following it might allow the Odyssey to re-establish contact or guide a rescue drone. Jax hesitated. His instinct screamed against trusting an unknown alien entity, especially one controlling constructs and killer wildlife. But Eris and Lena had a point. Their options were limited. All right. But we stay alert. One wrong move, and we fall back. Eris focused his thoughts again. Agreement.
We will follow.
The Guardian seemed to receive the message. It turned silently and glided towards a different tunnel leading out of the main chamber, one that hadn't been obvious before. It paused at the entrance, waiting. Taking a deep breath, the team followed the silent Guardian out of the heart of Xylos and back towards the uncertain surface. Chapter 6. The Symbiotic Path. The journey back was surreal. Guided by the silent construct, they moved through tunnels within the ancient ruin complex, bypassing sections choked with jungle roots and bypassing chambers filled with humming machinery they didn't understand.
The Guardian navigated the labyrinthine corridors with unerring accuracy.
Occasionally, other constructs would glide past in the opposite direction, ignoring the humans completely, intent on their own unfathomable errands within the planetary network. When they emerged onto the surface, it was into a different part of the jungle than they had entered. The path the Guardian indicated was not a clear trail, but a route discernible by subtle energy signatures that Lena's scanner could now weakly detect, guided by the initial map the Guardian had shown them. The construct itself didn't accompany them further. It simply stopped at the ruin's edge, watched them take the first few steps onto the new path, and then retracted silently back into the structure. Okay, Jax said, raising his rifle again.
Back in the green hell.
Scanner locked on that energy trail, Lena. Locked, she confirmed. It's faint, but consistent. It seems to follow lines of lower biological resistance, areas where the glowing network is less dense. Their progress was still difficult, but noticeably easier than before. Fewer entangling vines crossed this path. The air felt clearer, the oppressive psychic background hum slightly lessened. And crucially, the aggressive fauna seemed absent. They saw the large herbivores, the arboreal creatures, even another glimpse of the shimmering panther thing watching from a distance, but nothing attacked. "It's working," Eris said, amazed. "The planet, it's giving us safe passage." "Or," Jax grumbled, though with less conviction than before, "it's just leading us into a bigger trap." After several hours of tense hiking, following the invisible energy trail, Lena stopped.
Picking up something new.
Comm signal burst. Very weak, heavily encrypted. Jax immediately unslung the emergency comm unit.
Boost the gain.
Try standard handshake protocols. Static hissed, then resolved into Jian Li's voice, strained but recognizable.
A stardust? This is Odyssey. Repeat, can you read?
We detected a momentary clear window.
Yin. Odyssey.
Read you 5/3. Jax responded quickly, relief flooding his voice.
We are mobile, en route back to the lander.
Require assistance. Lander sustained damage, external comms offline. Navigating via local guidance. He hesitated, unsure how to explain their situation concisely. Local guidance? Copy that, Stardust. Maintain course. We've analyzed the magnetic fluctuations since the major pulse event. We've identified intermittent corridors of lower interference. Sending down a repair and extraction drone, the Magpie, along one of those corridors now. ETA to your lander's position is approximately 2 hours. Can you reach the LZ?
Affirmative, Odyssey.
We can make it. Good to hear your voice, Jen. Likewise, Jax. Captain Rostova sends her regards and expects a full debrief.
Odyssey out.
The signal cut out again as the atmospheric interference returned, but the message was clear. Help was on the way. They had a deadline. Double time, Jax ordered, picking up the pace. They pushed onwards, fatigue forgotten, driven by the promise of rescue. The energy trail continued to guide them, weaving through the alien landscape. As they neared the lander's position, the sounds of the jungle seemed to quieten further, as if holding its breath. They broke through the final line of strange, pulsating ferns and saw it, the Stardust, sitting where they left it, looking small and vulnerable in the vast jungle. The scorch marks from the predator attack were stark against its hull. Almost immediately, a new sound reached them, the high-pitched whine of atmospheric maneuvering thrusters. A sleek, utility drone, the Magpie, descended through a break in the canopy, guided by the Odyssey's precise orbital tracking. It landed gently beside the damaged Stardust. Automated arms extended from the Magpie, equipped with cutting torches, welding tools, and diagnostic sensors. It immediately began assessing and repairing the Stardust's damaged systems. The comms array, scoring on the landing struts, dents in the hull plating. Right on time, Lena breathed, watching the drone work. Eris looked back towards the jungle, towards the distant, hidden ruins. We owe it, he said softly.
The planet. It let us go.
It even helped us get rescued. It defended itself, Jax countered, though his tone lacked its usual certainty. And maybe decided we weren't worth the energy to eliminate once we showed we weren't overtly hostile inside its control center. He paused, glancing at the scanner Lena still held. Is that energy trail still active? Lena checked.
No.
It faded as soon as the Magpie's signal locked on. The guidance stopped the moment it was no longer needed. They boarded the Stardust as the Magpie finished its work, sealing the external hull breaches and restoring primary communication systems. The familiar hum of their own ship's systems was a comforting sound. Stardust to Odyssey, repairs complete, preparing for ascent, Jax reported, his voice clear and strong over the newly functional comms.
Copy, Stardust.
Ascent window is clear.
Welcome back.
Eva Rostova's voice came through, calm and professional, but with an underlying warmth that spoke volumes. Jax engaged the main engines. The Stardust lifted off, rising above the emerald canopy, leaving the overwhelming, mysterious world of Xylos behind. As they ascended, Eris watched the planet shrink on the viewscreen, the continents a swirling tapestry of green and blue, the bioluminescent network faintly visible even from orbit. They had touched something ancient, alien, and vast. Something that defied easy categorization. Was Xylos a threat? A resource? A sentient being deserving of rights and respect? They had more questions now than when they arrived.
Chapter 7. Ripples in the Void.
Back aboard the Odyssey, the debrief was intense. Eva listened patiently as Jax, Lena, and Eris recounted their experiences. The hostile fauna, the communication blackout, the discovery of the ruins, the encounter with the Guardian construct, and the undeniable evidence of a planetary consciousness that had both threatened and ultimately assisted them. Lena presented her sensor logs, showing the correlation between the energy pulses, the magnetic field fluctuations, the creature behavior, and the signals from the subterranean hub. Eris shared his biological samples and analysis, highlighting the intricate biochemical network connecting life forms and the strange, almost symbiotic relationship between the flora and the planet's energy fields. Jax provided tactical logs and damage reports, emphasizing the coordinated nature of the defenses they encountered. A sentient planet, Eva mused, looking at the image of Xylos on the main screen. Or at least, a planetary-scale integrated network that mimics consciousness and intelligence. The builders of those ruins created something unique and potentially dangerous. Dangerous, yes, Eris agreed. But also incredible. It didn't destroy us, Captain. It communicated, after a fashion.
It assessed us.
When it understood we weren't invaders like the ones in its memory, and that we needed help to leave, it provided a solution. It protected its territory, Dr. Jianli countered, ever the pragmatist. Its actions were consistent with an advanced, automated defense system reacting to an intrusion. The safe passage could simply have been routing the intruders away from sensitive core systems via paths of least resistance. Perhaps, Eva conceded. But the psychic element, the shared memory of the previous invasion, that suggests more than just automated responses. Whatever Xylos is, it's beyond our current definitions. The Odyssey had completed its primary survey objectives, albeit with unforeseen complications. Standard protocols dictated moving on to the next system. But Xylos lingered in their minds. Recommendations? Eva asked the senior staff. Full quarantine protocols, Jen stated immediately. Declare Xylos a Class 7 biohazard Epsilon zone. No further landings, minimal orbital observation only. The potential for unknown biological or psychic contamination is too high. We don't know what exposure to that central hub might have done. I concur with the quarantine, Jax added. But we need a permanent monitoring station in orbit. Something that advanced, that capable of controlling its environment and fauna on such a scale. We need to know if it ever looks beyond its own atmosphere. Eris looked troubled.
Quarantäne, yes. Observation, yes.
But biohazard Epsilon? That frames it solely as a threat, Captain. It's also a form of life, perhaps a form of consciousness, on a scale we've never imagined. Shouldn't we also consider initiating long-term, non-invasive communication protocols? Try to understand it, not just contain it. Eva considered their points. The pragmatism of Jen, the caution of Jax, the scientific and perhaps ethical plea from Eris. All valid. Xylos was a Pandora's box, containing potential threats but also unimaginable knowledge. We will implement the quarantine and establish a long-term monitoring buoy, Eva decided. Commander Jen, draft the Class 7 designation report, but include Dr. Thorne's findings regarding potential sentience and the details of the apparent communication and assistance. Let Command make the final strategic decision regarding future interaction. She looked at Eris. Your point about understanding is valid, Doctor, but caution must be our priority. We barely survived our first conversation. As the Odyssey adjusted its course, leaving Xylos behind, Eva stood alone on the bridge, watching the turquoise and emerald sphere recede on the viewscreen. They carried samples, data, and fragmented psychic impressions from the planet mind. They had faced its defenses and received its cryptic help. The universe, she reflected, was far stranger and more complex than humanity had ever dreamed. Xylos was proof of that. It was an echo of an ancient past, a whisper of a different kind of existence. And Eva had a chilling feeling that their brief, tumultuous encounter was not an end, but merely the first ripple from a stone dropped into the vast, silent ocean of the cosmos. The echoes of Xylos, she suspected, would follow them. The jump to FTL speeds smeared the stars into streaks of impossible light outside the Odyssey's viewports. Inside, the familiar thrum of the warp core replaced the silence of normal space. A vibration felt deep in the ship's structure. They were en route to LP 791-18, a red dwarf system nearly 70 light-years from the unsettling enigma of Xylos. 70 light-years felt simultaneously like an immense gulf and terrifyingly close. Shipboard life settled back into its predictable rhythms. Maintenance cycles, scientific analysis of the Xylos data, mission briefings for the upcoming survey. Yet, an undercurrent of tension remained. Crew members spoke in slightly hushed tones about the sentient planet. The mess hall buzzed with speculation ranging from rigorous scientific debate to wild conspiracy theories involving psychic plants and ancient alien gods. Captain Eva Rostova welcomed the return to routine, hoping it would dispel the lingering unease. She pored over the preliminary scans of the LP 791-18 system. A seemingly unremarkable M-class star with a handful of barren rock and ice planets and a significantly dense asteroid field in the outer orbits. A standard survey, perhaps blessedly boring after Xylos. Yet, the detailed report on Xylos, classified level Gamma and transmitted back to Command via tight beam encryption, weighed heavily on her mind. How would Command react? Would they order a fleet? A weapon? Or classify it and forget it? Commander Jian Li oversaw the meticulous cataloging of the Xylos sensor data, cross-referencing Lena Petrova's geological resonance maps with Eris Thorne's bewildering biosignatures. He remained skeptical of the more exotic interpretations, attributing the planet's actions to sophisticated, pre-programmed environmental controls left by the builders, but even he couldn't deny the strangeness of the coordinated defense and the targeted assistance. Jax, the security chief, ran ship-wide diagnostic checks on internal security systems and reviewed tactical simulations against planetary-scale environmental threats. He trusted his senses and his gut, and both told him Xylos was something to be avoided at all costs. He found himself watching Dr. Thorne more closely, noticing a new intensity, a distance in the botanist's eyes. Eris Thorne was indeed distant. Sleep offered little respite. His dreams were chaotic, vivid tapestries woven from the threads of his experience in the Xylos ruins. He saw the pulsating crystalline hub, felt the overwhelming psychic presence of the planet mind. He saw the bioluminescent network flare, felt the collective fear of the reptilian wolves as the control pulse washed over them. Sometimes, he dreamed he was part of the network, feeling the thrum of energy beneath the spongy soil, the slow thoughts of the giant mushroom trees, the watchful eyes of the color-shifting panthers. Other times, the dreams were darker, filled with the cold, obsidian gaze of the Guardian construct and the chilling memory flash of the ancient invasion it had shown them, jagged ships falling from a hostile sky. He tried to dismiss them as psychological residue, his mind processing the intense experience. But the dreams felt too real, too coherent. And stranger still were the waking moments. Sometimes, concentrating on his analysis of Xylos plant samples, he would feel a connection, a faint echo of the planet's hum in the back of his mind. He started having flashes of insight, predicting a minor system fluctuation in the hydroponics bay seconds before the alert sounded, sketching a complex energy waveform that Lena later matched to an unexplained anomaly in the ship's sensor logs from the Xylos system. He didn't speak of the dreams or the flashes of intuition, not even to Lena, with whom he usually shared his wildest theories. He felt changed. As if the contact with the Xylos hub hadn't just shown him the planet's mind, but had left a faint imprint, an open channel he couldn't close. He buried himself in his work, analyzing the unique genetic structure of the Xylos flora, trying to understand the biochemical basis for the planet-wide network. Perhaps understanding the mechanism would help him understand what was happening to him. Lena noticed his preoccupation.
Aris? Eting allrecht?
You've been quiet since we left Xylos. They were in the xenobiology lab, surrounded by glowing sample containers. Eris forced a smile. Just A lot to process, Lena. That place was monumental. The implications for panspermia theory alone are staggering, let alone the potential for non-biological sentience. Lena nodded, though her eyes held concern. I know. I feel it too. Like we peeked behind a curtain we weren't supposed to. She tapped a display showing resonance patterns from the ruin's central chamber. This energy signature. It's unlike anything in our databases. Part geological, part biological, part something else entirely. Jax observed Eris during combat drills, noting the botanist's slightly delayed reaction times but also an instance where Eris correctly anticipated the direction of a simulated attack vector before it was announced. Jax logged it as an anomaly, another piece in the unsettling puzzle that was Dr. Eris Thorne post-Xylos. As the Odyssey neared the edge of the LP 791-18 system, preparing to drop out of FTL, a message arrived from command.
Encrypted. Terse.
Eva read it in her ready room, her lips tightening into a thin line.
To Captain Erostova, UCS Odyssey.
From Admiral J. Petrovic, Sector Command.
Subjekt, Xylos Report, Gamma-Klassifikation.
Report received and analyzed. Xylos designated sector hazard Keter 7. Full containment protocols confirmed. Long-range monitoring approved. Addendum, interdepartmental debate ongoing regarding potential strategic value versus existential threat. Special interest group formed, Project Chimera. Further communication attempts strictly prohibited pending SIG assessment. Your findings potential psychic transference require immediate medical evaluation for all landing party members upon mission completion. Acknowledge. Eva sighed.
Keter 7.
The highest hazard level short of planetary sterilization orders.
Project Chimera.
That sounded ominous. And the mandatory psych evals. Necessary, she supposed, but it confirmed command shared her unease about the deeper effects of Xylos. She sent a simple acknowledgement and tried to push Xylos to the back of her mind. They had a new system to survey.
Anormal System.
Hopefully. Chapter 9. The Driftwood Anomaly. The transition from FTL back to sublight speeds was always jarring, a lurch in the gut as reality reasserted itself. The LP 791-18 system materialized on the main viewscreen, a dim, red sun casting a gloomy twilight over its domain. Dropping FTL, Jen announced calmly.
Entering LP 791-18 System Edge. All Systems nominal. Beginning Standard System Scan.
Consoles flickered as the Odyssey's powerful sensor arrays swept the system. Data streamed in, orbital mechanics of the known planets, atmospheric composition, thin or non-existent on all, gravimetric readings, background radiation levels. As expected, it was cold, desolate, and seemingly lifeless. Confirming planetary bodies, Jen reported. 4 primary planets, all outside the theoretical habitable zone. Multiple dwarf planetoids in the outer belt. Significant asteroid concentration between orbits 3 and 4, density higher than initial long-range scans suggested.
Any unusual energy signatures? Radio emissions.
Eva asked, remembering the anomalies that had heralded Xylos. Negative, Captain. Background radiation consistent with M-class star output. No coherent radio signals detected. Gravimetric reading stable. Wait. Jen paused, frowning at his console. Picking up a minor discrepancy in the asteroid field, Sector 7 Gamma.
Objekt with non-standard Messdistribution and unusual Materialkomposition.
Define unusual, Eva prompted. Spectrographic analysis shows processed alloys, non-native to this system. Significant quantities of molybdenum, tungsten, and an unknown heavier element composite. Structure appears artificial, Captain, but heavily damaged.
Minimal Power Signature, barely up-off Background Noise.
Eva leaned forward. Put it on screen. The viewscreen zoomed, resolving a section of the asteroid field. Amidst the tumbling rocks and ice chunks floated something else. It was long, vaguely cylindrical, but scarred, pitted, and broken. Sections of its hull were missing, revealing twisted internal structures. It tumbled slowly, end over end, catching the dim red light on surfaces that were clearly shaped, not natural.
It was a ship. An alien ship. Age estimation?
Eva asked. Difficult to determine precisely due to radiation damage and unknown material degradation rates, Jen replied, running simulations. But based on cosmic dust accretion and micrometeorite impacts, extremely old. Possibly hundreds of thousands of years. Maybe more.
Life since. None detested. No heat signatures beyond residual solar warming.
No atmosphere containment. It's a derelict, Captain.
Dead in space.
A collective hush fell over the bridge. Discovering evidence of alien life was monumental. Finding a derelict ship, ancient and silent, was both exhilarating and deeply unnerving. There's something else, Lena Petrova reported from her science station. Picking up a repeating signal from the object.
Very weak, narrowband neutrino emission.
Highly directional.
A distress call.
Eva wondered. Unlikely at this power level and frequency, Lena said. It's more like a beacon. Simple, repeating pattern.
Almost like a warning.
A warning. The word sent a chill down Eva's spine, echoing the ominous undertones of Xylos. Jen, risks of approaching? Minimal direct threat from the derelict itself, Captain. It's inert. However, the asteroid field is dense. Navigating close requires caution. Also, standard protocols for first contact postulate 7 apply, potential unknown biohazards or dormant technological threats. Jen adjusted his glasses. Given our recent experience at Xylos, extreme caution is advised. Recommend long-range drone scan only. Eva considered. Postulate 7 was clear. But a derelict ship this old, of completely unknown origin. The potential scientific windfall was immeasurable. The chance to study alien technology, perhaps decipher their language or history from ship logs. Eris Thorne spoke up, his voice quiet but intense.
Captain, a drone scan won't be enough.
The neutrino signal. The age. We need to get samples, try to access any surviving data cores. This could be fundamentally important. He seemed unusually agitated, his eyes fixed on the image of the derelict. Eva looked at Eris, then at Jax, who stood impassively near the tactical station, his expression unreadable. She weighed the risks against the potential rewards. Command's warning about psyche vals echoed in her mind. Was Eris's eagerness purely scientific curiosity, or something else? But he was still her best xenobiologist. Jax, Eva said.
Assemble a standard survey team.
Environmental suits mandatory. Full biohazard protocols. Yourself, Dr. Thorne, Specialist Reno, Exoarchaeology/Tech, and 2 security personnel.
Take the Star Hopper shuttle.
Approach the derelict with caution.
Secure docking, board if feasible.
Your primary goal is reconnaissance and data retrieval. Avoid unnecessary risks. If anything feels wrong, you pull out immediately. Understood. Jax nodded curtly. Understood, Captain. Jen looked momentarily displeased but didn't argue further. Eris almost vibrated with anticipation. Eva watched the bridge crew prepare, a familiar sense of unease settling over her. First a sentient planet, now an ancient alien derelict emitting a potential warning beacon in a dead system. Her instincts screamed caution, but the drive to explore, to know, was the very reason the Odyssey existed. She could only hope this encounter wouldn't end like the last one. Or worse.
Chapter 10, Boarding Party.
The Star Hopper shuttle, smaller and more maneuverable than the Stardust lander, detached smoothly from the Odyssey. Jax piloted them expertly through the swirling debris of the asteroid field, the shuttle's sensors painting trajectories of tumbling rocks onto his HUD. Beside him, Eris Thorne stared intently at the approaching derelict, now resolving into clearer detail. Its design was utterly alien. No concessions to aerodynamics, suggesting it was built purely for space. The hull was a dark, matte material that seemed to absorb light, scarred by millennia of impacts and radiation.
Strange, fin-like protrusionsanglet of the main body, purpose unknown.
Sections were buckled inwards, others peeled back, revealing glimpses of complex, non-humanoid internal structures. It dwarfed the shuttle. Matching velocity and rotation, Jax reported, his voice calm over the internal comms. Specialist Reno, scan for viable docking points or hull breaches large enough for entry. Specialist Kai Reno, a lanky man with cybernetically enhanced eyes, peered at his console. Scanning, multiple hull breaches, aft section primarily. Structural integrity looks compromised near the largest breach, suggesting auxiliary airlock C7, midship. Seems intact, minimal power fluctuations nearby suggest residual circuitry. Acknowledged. Approaching airlock C7, Jax confirmed. The shuttle maneuvered closer, its landing lights illuminating the derelict's pitted hull. Up close, the scale was immense, the silence unnerving. Jax carefully nudged the Star Hopper against the alien hull near the designated airlock, magnetic clamps engaging with a solid thud.
Docking clamps secure.
Hull seal positive, Jax announced.
Team, final Zoid checks.
Weapons on standby. Remember protocols, scan everything, touch nothing unless necessary for data retrieval.
Reno, Jure on point for tech interface.
Eris, biosignatures and environmental analysis. Stay sharp.
The 5-person team Jax, Ares, Reno, and 2 security troopers, Corporals Mendes and Ivanova cycled through the shuttle's airlock into the docking tube attached to the derelict's hull.
Jax operated the breaching charge controls, placing a shaped explosive carefully around the outer door seam of airlock C7. Breaching charge set. Clear the interface, Jax ordered. Everyone stepped back. With a muffled thud, the charge detonated, shearing through the ancient locking mechanism. The outer door hissed slightly, equalizing pressure with the near vacuum inside, then drifted open into darkness. "Okay people, let's go visiting," Jax said, activating his helmet lamp and stepping through the threshold, pulse rifle raised. The interior was pitch black, the only light coming from their suit lamps cutting sharp beams through the void. A fine layer of dust coated everything, disturbed by their entry, swirling in their lights like ghostly confetti. The airlock chamber itself was surprisingly large, hexagonal, with control panels covered in symbols unlike anything human or Xylosian, intricate spirals and crystalline lattices. Minimal residual atmosphere, trace exotic gases, hard vacuum conditions, Eris reported, checking his suit sensors. Temperature is near absolute zero. No radiation above background. Reno approached a control panel, running a scanner over it. Fascinating. Power conduits are biological in structure, integrated directly into the hull material.
Technology level. Vastly different from ours.
Trying to interface is like trying to plug a hydrospanner into a tree. Focus on finding the bridge or central data core, Jax instructed.
Mendes, Ivanova, watch hour 6.
They moved cautiously out of the airlock into a wide corridor. The architecture was disorienting. Walls curved at odd angles, ceilings vaulted impossibly high, and the gravity plating was long dead, leaving them floating in 0G, using magnetic boots to cling to the metallic deck plating. Debris floated silently in the darkness. Shards of unknown material, twisted conduits, objects that might have been tools or personal effects. The silence was absolute, broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the crackle of comms. It felt like a tomb. And then they saw them. Floating in the middle of a larger junction chamber, partially obscured by drifting debris, were the former crew. They were desiccated husks, preserved by the vacuum and cold. Tall, slender beings, easily over 2 meters, with bodies covered in segmented iridescent chitin, like giant insects. They had multiple limbs, delicate manipulators, and large, multifaceted eyes that were now dull and lifeless. Their bodies were frozen in attitudes of panic or desperation. By the founders.
Mendes Visperet.
Eris approached one of the bodies cautiously, his scanner active. Insectoid species. Carbon-based, silicon lattice exoskeleton. Highly complex physiology. Cause of death appears to be explosive decompression and system failure, but there's cellular degradation here inconsistent with simple vacuum exposure. Keep your distance, Doctor, Jax warned. Biohazard protocols. Agreed, Eris murmured, but he felt a strange pull, a faint resonance emanating from the desiccated corpse, similar to the psychic echoes he'd felt on Xylos, but weaker, filled with static and fear. He shook his head, trying to clear the impression.
Let's keep moving.
They pushed deeper into the silent vessel, their lights cutting through millennia of darkness. The sense of age, of utter abandonment, was profound. Yet beneath it, Eris felt something else growing stronger, a lingering psychic residue, a faint whisper of terror clinging to the very walls of the ship. It was the echo of the crew's final moments, trapped in the metal tomb. And he felt increasingly certain they hadn't died simply because their ship broke down. They had been running from something.
Chapter 11, Whispers in Metal.
The derelict ship was a maze. Corridors branched and rejoined, opened into vast, silent chambers filled with incomprehensible machinery, or ended abruptly in sections exposed to the void. Progress was slow, hampered by the zero gravity, the floating debris, and the constant need for caution. Specialist Reno worked diligently, scanning alien consoles and power conduits, occasionally managing to coax a flicker of light or a data fragment from the ancient systems. The power sources are decentralized, almost like ganglia in a nervous system, he reported over the comms. Most are completely inert, but some retain minimal charge. The core material seems to be bioluminescent when energized. I'm getting fragmented schematics. Propulsion systems unlike anything I've ever seen.
Possibly Dimensionfolding FTL.
Jax kept the team focused, methodically clearing junctions, checking corners. Corporals Mendez and Ivanova moved like shadows, their helmet lamps sweeping the darkness, pulse rifles ready. The silence pressed in, amplifying every scrape of their mag boots, every breath inside their helmets. For Eris, the journey was becoming increasingly disturbing. The faint psychic static he'd felt earlier was coalescing, sharpening. It wasn't just a general sense of fear anymore, it was specific flashes, sensory fragments bombarding his mind. A lurching sensation, alarms screaming in an unknown language. The sight of stars warping, twisting, viewed through an alien viewport. The chilling feeling of being watched across interstellar distances. Panic, chitinous limbs scrambling over complex controls. A collective mental cry of "it sees us. It follows." He stumbled, catching himself on a bulkhead, breathing heavily.
Dr. Torne?
Status.
Jax' voice coot trug the psychic noise. I'm fine, Chief, Ares managed, forcing the alien echoes back.
Just disoriented by the zero-G. Jax didn't look convinced but motioned them onward. Sensor readings indicate a large energy signature, comparatively speaking, 2 decks up. Could be the bridge or engineering. They navigated towards the signal, ascending through a wide shaft where gravity lifts once hummed. Now, they used tether lines and careful maneuvering. As they neared the source of the faint power reading, the psychic impressions intensified for Eris. He felt an overwhelming sense of dread emanating from ahead, a concentration of the insectoid crew's final moments. He also felt drawn. A specific console, a particular node in the ship's network, seemed to call to him, pulsing faintly in his Xylos-sensitized mind. This way, Eris said suddenly, pushing off towards a side corridor they hadn't explored. Hold up, Doctor, Jax ordered. The main power signature is straight ahead. No, it's the data core. Or whatever passes for it. It's this way. I can feel it. Eris hesitated, knowing how insane it sounded. Jax stared at him through their helmet faceplates. He remembered the command directive for psyche vals, Eris's odd behavior since Xylos. But he also remembered Eris's uncanny intuition during the drills, and the undeniable fact that they were dealing with phenomena far outside their understanding. He made a decision.
Allrecht, Doctor. Lead the way. Ivanova, take point.
Everyone, maximum alert. Eris led them down the darkened corridor, turning into a smaller chamber dominated by a complex, crystalline structure embedded in the wall. It glowed faintly with captured starlight from a nearby hull breach. Symbols swirled across its surface. This felt like the source of the psychic residue, the repository of the ship's final agony. Several desiccated insectoid bodies lay slumped near the structure, their multi-limbed hands frozen reaching towards it. This is it, Reno breathed, approaching the crystal, his scanners whirring. Central data storage, I think. Biocrystalline matrix.
Astonishing.
But the interface protocols, they're non-existent in our databases.
Can you access it?
Jax asked. Maybe, Reno muttered. If I can find a compatible power input and bypass security lockouts older than human civilization, it'll take time. Eris stepped towards the glowing crystal. The psychic whispers intensified, threatening to overwhelm him. Fear, despair, a warning. But beneath the terror, he sensed the structure, the data pathways. It felt distantly familiar, like the interconnected network of Xylos, but technological, artificial. Guided by an instinct he didn't understand, fueled by the lingering echo of the Xylos contact, he reached out a gloved hand.
Doctor, no.
Jax barked, but it was too late. Eris pressed his palm against the cool, faintly vibrating surface of the crystal.
Chapter 12, The Warning. The moment Ares touched the crystal, his mind exploded.
It wasn't the overwhelming, almost organic presence of the Xylos hub. This was different. Sharper, colder, a torrent of alien data mixed with the raw, crystallized terror of the insectoid crew. He saw their history in flashes, a species that evolved in nebula nurseries, masters of biotechnology and crystalline computing, peaceful explorers mapping the void. He saw their first encounter with the entropy shadow. Not a ship, not a definable entity, but a wave of negation, a consuming void that moved between stars, drawn to complex energy signatures and consciousness. It didn't conquer, it erased. He saw the insectoids flee, jumping desperately across galaxies, the shadow always following, always finding them, drawn by the very FTL wake they used to escape. He saw entire worlds silenced, star systems reduced to cold dust. This ship, the Kiriktar, the name resonated in the datastream, was one of the last refugee vessels. Warning. Beacon.
Consuming void.
Drawn to energy. Drawn to thought.
Do not broadcast.
Do not run.
Silence.
Hide. The fragmented concepts, the core of the warning beacon they were broadcasting, slammed into Eris's consciousness. He felt the final moments of the Kiriktar's crew as the shadow finally caught them in this system. Not a direct attack, but a subtle unraveling. Systems failed, power drained away, minds fractured under an overwhelming psychic pressure of utter nihilism, driving them to despair before the cold vacuum claimed them. The ship was left adrift, broadcasting its futile warning into the void. Eris collapsed, pulled back from the crystal by Jax, gasping inside his helmet.
Ares.
Report. What happened? Jax demanded, shaking him slightly. The crystal. It's a log. A warning, Eris choked out, images still flashing behind his eyes. They were running, from something. Something that consumes, hunts energy signatures. FDL drives. Consciousness. Reno, meanwhile, had found a compatible diagnostic port near the crystal, likely designed for the insectoid's own biotech. I'm in, he exclaimed. Bypassing security. Got it. Accessing primary logs. He's right, Chief.
It's all here.
Records of their flight, descriptions of the entity. They call it the Unmaking. It seems to hunt complex systems across interstellar space. This beacon was their final act, a warning. As Reno worked, interfacing his own tech with the alien crystal, the structure glowed brighter, projecting a faint, shimmering holographic image into the chamber. It showed a star map, then highlighted a creeping darkness spreading between star systems, engulfing them. It was a visual representation of the Unmaking's path of destruction. They believed activating the beacon, even weakly, might eventually draw the Unmaking here, Reno translated rapidly, deciphering linguistic algorithms. But they hoped it would serve as a warning to others before this system was erased. Suddenly, an urgent voice crackled over their external comms link to the Odyssey. It was Jian Li, his voice tight with alarm. Jax. Emergency. Long-range sensors detecting anomalous subspace distortions at the system's edge.
High Energy, Non-Standard FTL Signature, Matching Theoretical Models for Reality Warping Drives.
It's moving fast, trajectory towards this quadrant. Simultaneously, Eris cried out, clutching his helmet. It's here. Or, it heard us. The log, activating it. It felt like shouting in the dark. He felt a new presence brush against his mind, vast, cold, unthinkably alien, and utterly devoid of anything but hunger. It was the psychic pressure the insectoids had described, the edge of the unmaking. And terrifyingly, tangled within that cold presence, he felt a faint, defensive pulse, an echo of the Xylos network, reacting across light years to a perceived threat. "Reno, grab what data you can," Jax ordered, his voice like steel.
Everione Else, back to the shuttle. Now. Move, move, move.
The frantic scramble back through the dark, silent corridors of the derelict ship was fueled by primal fear. The whispers of the dead insectoids seemed to intensify, joined now by the terrifying mental pressure of the approaching unmaking. The tomb had become a trap.
Chapter 13. Echo es collide.
They sprinted, clumsy in their suits, zero-G adding a nightmarish quality to their flight. The oppressive silence of the derelict was gone, replaced by Jax's urgent commands over the comms, the gasps of exertion from the team, and the chilling psychic static building in Eris's mind. "Odyssey, this is Star Hopper," Jax reported, maneuvering through a debris-choked junction. "Team is en route back, hostile entity detected entering system, confirm." "Confirmed, Star Hopper," Eva Rostova's voice came back, strained but controlled. "Object is decelerating rapidly from FTL, emitting massive gravitational distortions. It doesn't appear to be a ship. Sensors are struggling to resolve its form.
Looks like a patch of warped space-time?
Energy readings are off the scale. ETA to your position, less than 10 minutes.
Unterstot.
Moving as fast as we can," Jax replied grimly. 10 minutes felt like an eternity and no time at all. Reno, floating alongside Jax, clutched a data crystal connected by interface cables to his wrist unit. "Got the core logs, Captain. And sensor readings from the insectoid's final encounter. Their description of the unmaking. It matches what our sensors are seeing. Not matter, not energy, but some kind of entropic field." Eris felt it growing stronger, the cold, vast hunger of the unmaking, like the universe itself developing a malignant intelligence. It was pressing against the system, its mere presence causing reality to fray at the edges. But beneath that, another sensation flickered, the distant thrum of Xylos, a feeling of ancient awareness stirring, focusing, not on the Odyssey, but on the far greater anomaly entering its cosmic neighborhood. It was like feeling two alien gods turn their attention towards each other across the void, with the Odyssey caught in the middle.
Almost terre.
Ivanova called out, pointing towards the faint glow of the Star Hopper's docking tube interface ahead. They tumbled into the connecting tube, Jax hitting the controls to cycle the derelict's inner airlock door shut behind them. They scrambled into the shuttle, collapsing into their seats as Jax threw himself into the pilot's chair.
Seal the outer door.
"Disengage clamps," he yelled. The shuttle shuddered as the magnetic clamps released. Jax fired the main thrusters, pulling the Star Hopper away from the ancient derelict just as the outer airlock door finished cycling closed.
"Shuttle AW, Captain."
Jax reported, pushing the engines to maximum.
"Setting course back to Odyssey."
"Acknowledged, Star Hopper. We're preparing for emergency FTL jump as soon as you're aboard. The entity. It's emitting some kind of field that's interfering with our warp core precharge sequence. We need to get clear before it gets any closer." On the shuttle's small view screen, they could see the derelict shrinking behind them. And beyond it, space itself seemed to be wrong. The stars were distorted, smeared, as if viewed through flawed glass. A patch of absolute darkness, deeper than the normal void, was expanding, blotting out the dim red light of LP 791-18. It was the unmaking, arriving. Eris stared, mesmerized and terrified. He felt the unmaking psychic pressure wash over the derelict, a wave of ultimate despair and negation. He felt the last echoes of the insectoid crew finally wink out, erased completely. He also felt the distant pulse from Xylos intensify, a flare of focused energy, not directed outwards, but inwards, as if the planet mind was reinforcing its own reality, its own psychic defenses against the encroaching void. Were they connected? Had the Xylos builders encountered the unmaking before? Was the planetary network a defense against such cosmic horrors? Or was it just Eris's mind, fractured by two successive alien contacts, conflating unrelated phenomena? 5 minutes to rendezvous, Odyssey, Jax reported, his knuckles white on the controls. Make it 4, Eva replied grimly. That thing is accelerating. The small shuttle raced through the asteroid field, dodging space rocks as the darkness spread behind them, a predator chasing its prey across the backdrop of a dying star system. Their escape felt desperate, fragile, a tiny spark of order fleeing an overwhelming tide of entropy. The echoes of Xylos and the whispers of the Kiriktar collided in Eris's mind, portents of a universe far more dangerous and strange than they had ever imagined.